What is going on? Is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we are going to be doing a way too early 2026 NFL mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. I make content like this all the time. This is my second way too early 2026 mock draft. Merry Christmas, by the way. I'm going to be dropping this on Christmas. I'm going to be a little bit away, so if I'm a little bit late to respond to comments, that might be the reason why, but I take it on myself to respond to every single comment because that's the best part of YouTube, is being able to talk with you guys. Kind of crazy that we're at where we're at right now, but we're on the road to 15K, almost there. Let's get there. Let's get into this, starting out with the number 1 overall pick, which, yes, this is a draft order that I just conjured out of my ass. I basically was like, well, based on this, is also a continuation of my 2-round mock draft earlier in the week. Feel free to be able to go check that out, but also I have the picks up here just so you guys get to see it a little bit easier. But regardless, I ended up just basically saying, man, what do I feel the most confident in based on what I drafted, how they perform? And if it ruffles your feathers, that's okay. It's literally it was just conjured out of my ass, like it straight up was. So we'll be having just a good time here. This is more so to get some prospect awareness and just be able to get some momentum built for 2026, because as you can see, one of my favorite quarterbacks and one of the guys who I did really like is now in this 2026 draft class. But starting with the number 1 overall pick, we do have the Las Vegas Raiders in the 2022 mock draft. They went Abdul Carter and Jalen Milroe. In this situation, I do think that Milroe will have some growing pains, so I'm going to have you guys trading him away to the Jets, FYI. But Arch Manning's available. Take Arch Manning. Yes, he ended up saying that he wants to stay 4 years in college. That doesn't really mean a ton to me because, first off, makes my mock draft harder. But second off, and more importantly, first overall pick money is huge. There's a big difference between NIL quarterback money and then like NFL quarterback money. So the closer you can get to those contracts, the better. Arch Manning going to Las Vegas. Also, big organization. Honestly, it's a great place for Arch Manning to be. And it's better than putting the Saints at number 1. So I wanted to be able to change that up a little bit. But Arch Manning goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. You have Abdul Carter and Arch Manning leading your squad now. Now it's time to put around some weapons around the guy. Then we got Caleb Banks at number 2. I think this guy could have a Jalen Carter-esque rise. He was going to be a late first for me in the first place, but he joins Will Johnson and Armand Membu. Armand's going to be playing inside, potentially as a tackle in case of injury, but Will Johnson, super high-end defensive back. I think being able to get some punchiness on the interior with Mason Smith. You have Mason Smith and Caleb Banks both work out. You might have one of the best unstoppable duos on the defensive interior. Caleb Banks is just an absolute freak show. So I'm going to project, and you guys know I don't like projecting, but we're going to project because we do have to do that with this, that Caleb Banks will be one of the top 3, top 4 picks because he is ridiculous. This is going to be the Mason Graham of next year's class. The high-level wins are just insane, and if he has an extra year to build up consistency, I think that will be able to catapult him, very similar to Mason Graham, who was relatively inconsistent last year, to be able to be where they're at now. Then we got Drew Aller going to the Los Angeles Rams. I think the Rams might fall apart a little bit. I guessed it a couple years early, but I love McVay. I love everything that he does. Honestly, the Rams were a top 3 or top 4 team for me this year. And injuries have kind of beaten them up a little bit. But I do think that the Rams, at a certain point, have a little bit of an expiration date. And so, of course, yes, this is based off of a 2-round mock draft. Otherwise, we would have 3rd-round pick in there, which normally is what I do, but trying to, limit that for the holidays. Drew Aller's a great quarterback, though. Being able to have him grow under Sean McVay was kind of my dream and my vision for this mock draft. And so I'm very happy that we were able to do it. Then we have the Miami Dolphins at 4. This is a very hot take, but they might end up scrapping a lot of the stuff this year. They're already not doing too hot, and then adding Malachi Starks essentially replaces Javon Holland, who's they're losing, so you're not necessarily getting a upgrade to your defensive roster. And Wyatt Milam's going to be an upgrade in the offensive line, but at the same time, I just don't trust. Why am I forgetting the left tackle out of Houston's name all of a sudden? I don't trust your 2nd-round pick out of Houston. His name's like right there on the tip of my tongue, but you guys know who I'm talking about. Patrick Paul, there we go. But Caden Proctor's absolutely fantastic. I mean, first off, he liked one of my tweets. Oh, no, I'm just joking. Who gives a shit about that? But, Caden Proctor, he ended up absolutely balling out when I actually watched edge rushers versus this dude. He really is a top 5 potential player in the class, and I don't trust Patrick Paul. Terran Armstead, don't think he's going to be there for the long run, even if he is not necessarily super healthy. Caden Proctor is so worth it. And you might say, hey, let's go after the quarterbacks at this point. I mean, maybe, but honestly, you put any other quarterback behind that offensive line, I don't think they're doing too much better. So continue to fix the offensive line. Kane Proctor, absolutely worth it. Speaking of another quarterback here, we got Garrett Nussmeier going to the New Orleans Saints at number 5. He ended up going back to school as well, deservedly so. I mean, I think both him and Aller have a lot of room to grow, but he joins Colston Loveland as well as LT Overton. Decided to take a unique approach there for New Orleans and end up getting them some real high-end options there. Colston Loveland fits a massive need with great value, and then you also have LT Overton, who ended up slipping, probably goes back to school, but in that one, I only sent Isaiah Bond and Ben Morrison back to school. So I think that it is worth, testing out what would happen if these guys don't return. And LT Overton slipped there to the second round, gives you a real key piece on that defensive line. Super excited to give you both your quarterback as well as your weapons for the future, both on offense and defense. Then we got Ben Morrison going at number 6. Yes, I have this guy returning in every single one of my mock drafts because, well, until he ends up declaring, I'm going to declare that he ends up staying because he's a true junior, should be a top 10 pick, not going to be a top 10 pick. And he also is at a school that he can end up shining and balling out. Like, he had a season-ending injury. So Ben Morrison goes here to the New York Giants. He joins Cam Ward as well as Cam Williams. I went pretty heavy on the offensive side. Normally, I like to go for the cornerback there in round 2, but this time I opted to go after Cam Williams because the value was too damn good. I love your offensive line coach. I want Ben Morrison as well, though, to be able to join Andrew Phillips. You might have a little bit of a lack of size, like Drew Phillips, I think around 190, same thing with Ben Morrison, but that doesn't really stop talent from being able to be talent. And maybe you can get yourself a bigger physical corner as the draft goes on, but Ben Morrison, worth it at number 6. Then we have Peter Woods at number 7 going to the Vikings. I'm just predicting a little bit of a fall off. And you might say, like, that's a massive fall off, Alex. I mean, this team is, like, legitimately a Super Bowl competitor. I think Sam Darnold goes and gets some big money. I mean, I think that you guys should keep him. This is projecting that Sam goes somewhere else. Like, keep that in mind. Sam goes somewhere else in this scenario. But I do think JJ's going to have a rookie year. And the team is overperforming. You can't disagree with that. All of us did not expect for them to do this well. I love Kevin O'Connell. So this is not an indictment on him. Again, you guys are probably going to be better than this. Just enjoy it. Just enjoy being able to get Peter Woods here at 7. This dude's high-end play is fantastic. I mean, I'm going to wait to see the consistency aspect because I do have some concerns in terms of his consistency. But very similar to a lot of younger defensive interior talents, Peter Woods probably is going to continue to improve as he gets experience. So Peter Woods joins Tyler Booker on the Minnesota Vikings and pretty much fixes both sides of the lines. Then we have Carnell Tate at number 8 overall, going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, another team that I do think is relatively overperforming at the moment. I love them to death, but at the same time, I do think that when you look at the roster as a whole, it is kind of more of a Moneyball roster. You don't have elite pieces at specific positions on the offense, except maybe like Tristan Wirfs. That's going to piss people off. I know. Disregard that comment if it pissed you off. But regardless, I do think that as everyone gets better, you're going to have Jalen Rose there to, potentially replace Chris Godwin. But Mike Evans is going to be in the last year of his deal. So right now, you're essentially going to have Jalen Rose as your wide receiver 1. Then if you bring Carnell Tate in, I think he complements him extremely well. You got James Pierce to replace Joe Tryon Shoyinka. I think you guys have a really good shot. But I'm also projecting that the Saints did get better. The Carolina Panthers did continue to improve, as well as the Atlanta Falcons finally getting into their stride. So keep that in mind as well. Lenore Sellers then goes to the Cleveland Browns at number 9. He ends up being able to throw to Tetro McMillan and having Shamar Stewart on the other side of the ball being part of that last draft class. And I mean, that's just kind of the way that you can roll it. Lenoris basically is going to be an improved version of Jalen Milroe. And so if you can end up getting Lenoris here at pick 9, that's assuming Milroe comes out. But I think he should also go back to school. If Milroe goes back to school, then I think he might be worth more than Lenoris at that point because you get the 5th-year contract, etc. But I digress. Lenoris has a ton of potential. The dude had some really good stretches. And again, it really comes down to consistency. The dude's super young. Don't push it too far. But Tetro McMillan, Shamar Stewart, Lenore Sellers, that sounds like a pretty nice holy trinity, so to speak, for Cleveland. Then we have Ruben Bain Jr. here at pick number 10 to the Carolina Panthers. He joins Mason Graham and Mike Green. It pretty much was the best player available. I assume you guys will be getting an offensive weapon there in round number 3. So let me make it clear. I'm not saying like, hey, if you only get these 2 players, then you get Ruben Bain. I think you need to help Bryce Young out a little bit. But Ruben Bain's fantastic. I mean, he probably will be a top 2 player for me in the class. And he ends up going here at pick 10. So, I mean, just sometimes you got to go best player available. Like Mike Green, Mason Graham, Ruben Bain. Not going to complain about that defensive line. But winning through the trenches, or building through the trenches, is the best strategy to winning, in my opinion. And Ruben Bain will get you there, especially when you pair him up with Mike Green. Then we got Francis Mauigoa going to the Tennessee Titans. I know my humor is shit when I try to be semi-serious, but it's okay. We all love it. No, we don't. I love it, but you guys get the gist. But regardless, this team ends up drafting Shedeur Sanders to Eli Manor in their first 2 rounds. I think this is a proper opportunity for them to address that right tackle spot, and Francis could easily end up stepping in day 1 and being able to have a J.C. Latham type impact. You have 2 really consistent tackles at both sides, and both of them with good athletic profiles. Francis is going to be a really good get. Again, Shedeur needs that protection because he's not the most athletic guy on planet Earth. And so I think that hopefully Brian Callahan learned from his mistakes there. Well, not his, but the organization's mistakes of not fully protecting Joe Burrow. And they end up protecting Shedeur Sanders here. Then we have Caleb Downs going to the New York Jets. I did have them trading for Jalen Milroe at this point. I didn't really want to take Nico Iamaleava, but this team would be able to pretty much send, because Jalen was a 2nd-round pick for Las Vegas. He'll have 3 years left on his contract. I assume it'll be like a 4th-round pick. Just going to put that out there. So it's a 4th-round pick you can send, essentially. Again, don't overthink it. Honestly, I was just saying, like, hey, I really want Caleb Downs to go. This is a way that they can get their quarterback and Caleb Downs all in one. But they also get Tyler Warren and Siobhan Ravel all at once. So you pretty much retool the defensive secondary there with Downs, who's probably the best player in the country right now. Hot take. But you also have Tyler Warren, who's going to be a very reliable weapon there for Jalen Milroe and or Aaron Rodgers. Then we got the New England Patriots going TJ Parker. I love TJ Parker, except for when he ends up destroying my SMU Mustangs. But, I mean, deservedly so. I assume you guys are going to get T. Higgins. So just want to keep putting that out there because you're going to say, like, hey, where's the wide receiver? I wanted to let you guys know that's kind of my assumption at the time being. Just, it's a very high probability. But that aside, you got Travis Hunter there, who's going to be your defensive back, whether he wants to be a corner or a free safety. I don't care. Whatever works the best for you guys. I would have loved Caleb Downs to this team, but kind of fleeced you guys a little bit. But that's okay. TJ Parker, I think an edge rusher certainly could work Keon White for the long haul. Being able to get top options on the defensive line, nothing that's anti-Patriot. But then you also have Josh Connerly, who addresses that left tackle spot, and I think he's going to be fantastic. This team I do see taking a big jump. Could even see them making the playoffs. I debated putting them in over some other teams in your division, but to be fair, you guys are just under the best in your division. Luke Hodge is next, going to the Colts. I didn't end up getting a tight end for you guys in the last mock draft. I got you one here. He's transferred from Arkansas to Ole Miss, which is going to be a huge win for him, in my opinion. Especially with Trey Harris going to the draft and stuff, I could totally see Luke Hodge having a big year. He joins Nick Eamon-Warry and Omar Norman Lott, so fix the defense there with a big safety with tons of potential. Not the biggest need for the Colts. I'll address that now, but this is also somebody that is literally so damn good, and he's going to test out through people just don't have enough awareness of Nick Eamon-Warry, which is why they don't talk enough about Nick Eamon-Warry. I think that's going to be, it's more of an information and availability issue rather than anything. And Omar Norman Lott is ranked above him. So you got my number 23 and 19 player respectively at those 2 spots. And I think defensive tier is an underrated need for this team. Luke Hodge ends up filling that offensive weapon role though. Then we have the Cardinals getting Jeremiah McCoy, cornerback out of Tennessee. I really like this guy. He's still growing and developing, no doubt. But, I mean, the high-end plays that I've seen from this dude have been fantastic. And, this guy definitely brings that size and physicality that I don't necessarily see from the other cornerbacks there for Arizona. So I thought it was going to be a good opportunity to join Tyleik Williams and Jihad Campbell and be able to create a well-rounded attack there on defense. You join Max Melton as well, Garrett Williams, Budda Baker, and you have yourself a very underrated, if not top-tier, defense in the NFL, which is something that, going to be real, not necessarily thought of the Cardinals at the moment, which, I mean, to be fair, you guys have a lot of pieces, like certain injuries. The BJ Ojolari has certainly, dampered your impact, but I honestly think you guys have a lot of really good talent that doesn't get a lot of respect. Then we have Lawson Lucky going to the Broncos. I ended up missing out on my dream tight end Tyler Warren for you guys, but they were taking literally like 10 or 15 picks before the Broncos. So I do think that maybe you have a slight regression in terms of overall production. You could end up being just as good, but I mean, with Luther Burden and Quinshon Judkins, I just enjoy the fact that you get Lawson Lucky here at 16. I think that would be a great addition to the team. Again, don't overthink the draft order. It's literally pulled out of my ass, essentially. But, I mean, it has a little bit more thought to it than that. But regardless, I do think this team has a lot of really good potential. And you can end up having your, pretty much your three-headed beast there with Burden, Judkins, and Lucky to give Bo Nix a lot of support. Then we have the Bears going Kevin Concepcion. You guys ended up drafting Ashton Genty, Jack Nelson, and Donovan Jackson in the past mock draft. So you address that key bell cow back situation that DeAndre Swift can accompany. Then you also have your true left tackle and your guard role. I think you also can get Karan Amagaji to guard. So you kind of essentially filled 3 roles in the offensive line better than they were the year before. I think that's super duper key for this team. I think that you guys are now on a big push to potentially be able to make a deeper playoff run, especially with Kevin being able to fill in the role where, why am I forgetting, Keenan Allen once was. Then we have the Seahawks back-to-back drafts going Nico Iamaleava. It's just pretty obvious that you guys need a contingency plan there. Solid athlete. I think he'd work really well in this system, but most recent performance certainly does have people questioning it a little bit. He does have those stretches of games where it is like, yeah, you need to grow, you got to mature, which is why he goes here at 18, but he also has those games where it's like, holy crap, you are a top-end talent, which makes it worth it. And when you have Arianti Ursary playing that left guard or right guard spot, Marcus Bowe playing the other guard spot, Ursary having the future vision of being able to replace Abe Lucas, because as much as Abe Lucas is a great talent, he's just not healthy. The best ability is availability. You can end up really having a solidified offensive line for Nico to be able to step into the NFL and have a much easier time. You have a great two-headed running back room, and I think that's going to be a recipe for success. Next, we have the Falcons going after Anthony Hill Jr., true linebacker out of Texas. He ended up having a little bit of a struggle week in coverage. I think it was 8 of 8 for 92 yards and a couple touchdowns this past week. But I think that, being 6'3", 235, and being extremely talented allows him to be able to bounce back from that with an extra year of development. You pair him up with Jalen Walker, who will be playing edge for you, but if you need to, play him linebacker, and Jamari Harris playing that boundary corner position. And I think you're giving Michael Penix a really solid safety blanket in case he ends up making a mistake or two. And I think that's actually more key to, if you have a baseline level of talent, I think it's more key to be able to have your quarterback be comfortable, outside the offensive line, be comfortable with his defense, rather than feeling like he's walking on eggshells every mistake he makes. So Anthony Hill Jr. makes the job for Michael Penix a whole of a lot easier. And that's also coming from a Steelers fan who has seen our quarterback get bailed out a billion times because our defense is just that good. So hoping for you guys to have that same type of rise. Nick Harbor goes to the Texans at pick 20. Nick Harbor's fantastic. He's just super inconsistent. He's the only guy in, I think, NCAA with a 99 speed, but the dude, if I'm not mistaken, he's an athletic freak, no doubt. I'm trying to remember the actual statistics, but regardless of that, Tank Dell, obviously another horrific knee injury. That's just a problem. No one doubted Tank Dell's talent. I remember seeing him at the Senior Bowl. I'm like, oh my God. The route running was literally through the roof. But it's are you going to be as healthy as Devontae Smith? And unfortunately, we're reminded that Devontae Smith is an exception, not the rule. And unfortunately, that's why he's not been healthy. And he's been continually hurt. And technically, Nico Collins hasn't been extremely reliably healthy either. So being able to get a top-end wide receiver to pair up with Kenneth Grant and Tate Ratledge, helping out those respective lines, is going to be a great way to give both a deep threat as well as more of a possession target there for CJ Stroud going forward. Then we have Isaiah Bond going to the Cowboys. So it was only 2 players I had returning in my most recent mock draft. It was Isaiah Bond, who had a pretty poor year for a potential first-round pick, pairing up there with Ben Morrison. The Cowboys need it. They got Amari Hampton to be able to vault them to this point. You might say, why the hell are the Cowboys at 21? It's because of the fact that I think they have a legitimate, reliable back in Amari Hampton, who could be a 3-down guy, and TJ Sanders, who's a really, really good defensive interior. So don't get it twisted. This team actually is not as bad as what you think it is. There's going to be a lot more guys who come back healthy, Got Marshawn Nealon finally being able to prove himself, which he did at the start of the preseason and everything. So I'm super excited for him to get that opportunity going forward. And now you add Isaiah Bond to the mix. I think that's a recipe for success. Then we have the Chargers going Harold Perkins here. I wanted to address the edge rushing room, and there's not really anybody that I'm super excited with. But also, I do think that if you can use him in like a Josiah Stewart role, Derek Moore, to be fair, that's literally what the defensive coordinator is used to having, then I think it could be a really big success for Harold Perkins. You're taking someone who is about 220 pounds. He's coming off an injury, season-ending injury, and I think that this is the prime opportunity for him to bounce back this year at LSU there with Patrick Payton and then be able to have a legitimate draft value here in the NFL outside being a pure linebacker. Again, being able to have somebody who first off recruited but also used Josiah Stewart so well is going to be a great opportunity to try to see if Harold Perkins can try to add some mass and play a similar role. But he joins Kelvin Banks, who ended up slipping a little bit, but you can insert any interior offensive lineman there. And then Caleb Johnson, who's going to be more of the bell cow back. Then we have at 23, this is a my guy already, Jordan Faison. He's not the biggest guy on planet Earth. He's 180 pounds, but this past week, just watch the Notre Dame game. This is the only dude making any sort of impact on the game on the offense outside of Jeremiah Love, but even Jeremiah Love, who we'll talk about in a second, he pretty much had, I think, 7 carries for like 8 yards and then 199-yard carry. So it happens. But regardless, Jordan Faison's so electric. I just saw him. I'm like, wow, that guy has the it factor. There's not many receivers that really catch my eye. Jordan Faison was one of them. He joins Trey Amos and Kyle Kennard, who fixed up that defense there for Dan Quinn, giving now with Faison a weapon there for Jaden Daniels. Then we have Jeremiah Love going to the Steelers. We went to Iowa State pretty much for our entire first 2 rounds with Darian Porter and Jaden Higgins respectively, which now, funnily enough, I'm realizing that you have Joey Porter Jr. and Darian Porter, but that makes it even more exciting. But Jaden Higgins, big, actually potentially boundary receiver there for us as well. Jeremiah Love, imagine him. He's a home run hitter, very, very consistent, good missed tackle force ability. He's going to be a really good player. He's going to be the first round running back of this class, and being able to put him with Arthur Smith, going to be honest, kind of like the idea. You bring in a quarterback, whether that's going to be Sam Darnold, bring back Justin, bring back Russ, like whatever the hell we want to do. I think we've just been so damn consistent, and especially when you have more talents like that, just limits the liability or responsibility for the quarterback. Jeremiah Love, definitely going to be within striking range, though. Then we have Gabe Jacost going to the Green Bay Packers. He's a little bit of a bigger guy, man. He's not going to be your 220-pound edge rusher here. This guy definitely is like 260, 270. And I've loved Gabe Jacost. We've loved him, like the Discord squad, so feel free to join that through that link tree. But Gabe Jacost has been someone we love from his true freshman year. We were watching Jerzon Newton, and we were just like enamored with him like a year and a half before he came out. And Gabe Jacost was one of those guys in his true freshman year. We were like, holy crap, who is this guy? I think he's a first-round talent. I think he's going to get a lot of respect as time goes on, but I'm going to continue giving it to him already. He joins Walter Nolan to be the 3-tech and Davison Igbinosun to be that press man type of guy that Jeff Hafley loves. And you're going to make a very well all-around defense there for Green Bay. Then we have Spencer Fano going to the Baltimore Ravens, tackle out of Utah. He's been extremely consistent this year, super young. Actually, I don't know his exact age. I take that back. But regardless, they're young. They're rookies, for Christ's sakes. But he joins Nick Scott and Jahdae Barron. I felt bad for not addressing the offensive line. Spencer Fano has been doing a really good job this year. Technically, I could have swapped him with the guy who I'm going to send to the Eagles. Spoiler alert. But we'll talk about him when the time comes up. Spencer Fano, though, a lot of people have him as like their top offensive tackle of the class. He ends up slipping to 26, and you guys end up stealing him there. Which, of course, how many people have 2026 boards? Not many. So I guess you could say, who gives a shit who has him high? But Denzel Boston then goes to the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals. He joins Will Campbell, Jack Sawyer, and that's going to be incredible because I assume T. Higgins is now on another team. Jermaine Burton, Andre Yosevaz. Like, this is just going to be another weapon to be able to join Jamar Chase there. And Denzel Boston has been fantastic and consistent this year. He's actually went a lot earlier in my last mock draft, but he ended up sliding a little bit here. Technically, I could have swapped him and Faison, but to me, I just don't care. Like, I really like Jordan Faison. Wanted to give him the credit he deserves. Regardless, you end up having your offensive line piece there, your edge piece there, and now your wide receiver. It's going to be a very well-rounded group. Super excited for it. Then we have Parker Brailsford going to the Detroit Lions, joining Suona Savania to play that guard role. Technically, we did see that Christian Mahogany did a really good job. He was graded the highest in power and anchor, which, I mean, he's in the perfect situation to succeed. But also, Jonah should be training up to be an offensive tackle. Parker is going to be the successor at center, though. Cameron Rucker was a steal at the end of the second round, so I think this is going to be a prime opportunity for you guys to have a really good opportunity to get the best player available, which I think Parker Brailsford could be that. Oscar Delp's next to the Niners at 29. I think you guys have a bounce back year, get healthy, get a reality check, and sometimes teams like yours just need a fire lit under their ass. So you guys end up getting Josh Simmons, Princely Umanmielen, two amazing players, great value there. And then you guys are going to be replacing George Kittle with hopefully a good year from Oscar Delp. He was supposed to be a legitimate late first in this draft. We're going to hope to see if he ends up doing that in next year's. Then we have Keldrick Falk. Yeah, so by the way, we did have 3 tight ends. Keldrick Falk, big edge rusher out of Auburn, going to Kansas City. He was actually really good this year. I think he has 4 or 6 sacks, but he has over 40 pressures. He's a mismatch, and he's actually dominating. I think Spags would absolutely love this guy. Emeka Buka, DJ McKinney, fixing the sexy positions on offense and defense, respectively. I do not think DJ ends up actually declaring, so we'll see what happens with that. But if he does, my God, I mean, he's going to rise up boards as well. He's going to test through the roof, and people are going to watch his tape and be like, where the hell has this guy been? But Keldrick Falk joining you guys and being able to add another piece to that defense. Anthony Donko goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. This guy has been awesome this year. You look at the overall efficiency of his blocking, it's through the roof. And he went against Ohio State and allowed 0 pressures. I think he had an 86 PFF pass blocking game. I honestly think this guy could be your successor there for Lane Johnson. And also Penn State, used to the Pennsylvania climate, and he's doing that well in that type of climate. Just think about the fact that he could probably do that in the NFL, and you send him to Stout U. I think you guys are in for a treat. He ends up joining Michael Williams and Harold Fannin, respectively. Harold Fannin was a little bit of a curveball, but I thought best player available. He is someone who's fantastic value as well. He also is somebody who could be after the catch and a really good route runner. So you got yourself a really good tight end there. Even if he's not the best blocker, essentially going to be the Grant Calcaterra replacement. Maybe you can end up getting a blocking tight end like CJ Dupre on day 3 to be able to help out on more of those running downs. But then finally, we do have the Bills winning the Super Bowl, but who gives a shit who wins the Super Bowl in this? Tao Johnson goes to them to be able to fix that deep secondary part. He can play slot, but he can also play free. I really like the fact that he is so much of a, pretty much a Swiss Army knife in that regard. He joins JT Tuimoloau, Derek Harmon, and Ricky White. JT adding that meat on the defensive line, Derek Harmon adding a punchiness to the defensive interior, and Ricky White essentially being Amari Cooper for you. So that's going to be the video. I hope you guys did enjoy it. It was fun to make. Obviously, it's a lot more work being able to have to do it like the graphical style, but honestly, it's really good to be able to dig into the class, be able to get excited for it, and also continue the mock draft that I've done, because that's kind of cool. But thank you so much for watching. I love you. See you on the far side.